All right, welcome back to another episode of the Downtime. Sarah Wynn here with Andrew Morehead from GS1 US. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sarah. Happy to be here.
Such a pleasure. We were bonding about sports before we got on this. Want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your favorite football team?
Yeah, so I am originally from the South. I currently live in New York for about 8+ years now. I grew up in New Orleans, so my favorite football team is definitely going to be the Saints. And I also went to Texas A&M, so I am a Aggies fan when it comes to college football. Although I'm probably the worst Aggie if you think about it, because I haven't seen enough games to really call myself an Aggie fan, but that's just how it goes. Sometimes you get busy. But originally from the South, I've lived in lots of places in this country, and I've got a very eclectic background, but we'll say coming from the healthcare space, working with barcodes and identification, and then now with GS1 US, working completely in identification and barcodes on a whole nother scale.
Yes, and we could talk college football all day, and we are recording this before the college football playoffs. So if our teams end up facing each other, may the best team win.
Yes.
But we are here today to talk all things barcodes and Sunrise 2027.
Yes, Sunrise 2027 is a hot topic.
Yes, where should we even start? It's a pivotal milestone.
So let's kind of just jump in and talk about what it is. So Sunrise 2027 is a global initiative, but Sunrise is the domestic US version of it. And what that means is that basically 2D barcodes are getting ready to be accepted at point of sale retail. So the same way you see those lines and spaces, the typical 1D barcodes getting scanned, now there's a global initiative to basically scan 2D barcodes and do the same thing. But the caveat is this barcode does so much more and holds a lot more data. And it's a pivotal milestone, I would say, for multiple reasons, but I'm going to point out, I think, two of them that make the most sense here is that people want more data. Marketing want more ways to market, and regulations are just increasing. And so, with a 2D barcode, you're able to put all of this additional data into it to be able to do these things. And the other thing I'm going to point out is that, excuse me, it's the most recent barcode that's gotten a almost global support around it or a global push. So the last time we saw something like this was when the 1D barcode was created, the UPC basically. So you've got everybody that's on board with utilizing this new data carrier that stays smaller than a 1D barcode and holds all this additional data and gives you this online experience. And so with everybody wanting these things and having that global push behind it, 1D barcodes just can't keep up. So it's something that's hasn't been seen in 50+ years because the 1D barcode is the bread and butter of industry for 50+ years. Everybody's been scanning that. It revolutionized the checkout because there once upon a time was a time when people were having to manually calculate, tally up all the products. And you know how long that would take today?
I think the line at the grocery store would be crazy long,
Oh yeah. And with the instant gratification of technology today, people's patience levels would not handle
myself included.
it.
I'll add that we do have a story on 2D barcodes on Packaging OEM's website. And the 1D barcode, I believe it's about 12 digits it can hold. 2D barcodes can hold thousands of characters. And they really resemble QR codes, I would say. Is that correct, Andrew?
Yeah, so there's the typical 2D barcode that we see out in the landscape, we'll say, is the QR code. You know, a lot of people got used to it during COVID. You scan it, you get a menu, you order your food, you don't touch anybody, social distancing, all that good stuff. But there's two other barcodes that are going to be approved for use for Sunrise 2027 and GS1 standards. So one of them is a GS1 data matrix, which I just like to call a glorified 1D barcode, only because it doesn't give you an online experience. It just holds infinite amount more data in a smaller footprint. And then the other two, which is the QR code and the regular data matrix, those are your web-enabled 2D barcodes. So you'll be able to have that same 12-digit number, which is the UPC, inside of your 2D barcode, but then you'll have additional data points to further identify that specific item, and then still be able to go to an online experience, whatever that may be.
Yeah, that online experience is interesting. It's that kind of dynamic content. I know allergens could live here, even recipes. There's a lot of avenues to explore.
Yeah, there's actually a bunch of use cases. I'll bring up one which is really cool. There's this thing about allergens you just brought up, right? And there's visually impaired people who, when they go into grocery stores, they can't exactly read what's in the ingredients and if they're allergic to it or not. So there's a 2D barcode that's utilizing GS1 standards that's called an accessibility barcode. And when you scan it, for people that are visually impaired, it'll speak out the ingredients to you so you know that you're grabbing the right product. But then it goes even further to even help them like cook their first meal, which was crazy to watch as a video. It's actually really cool and kind of like a tearjerker at the same time. But yeah, the barcodes have so much capabilities.
Well, I think I'm going to have to see this video. But let's kind of dive into the adoption implementation of 2D barcodes. So, um, what are the opportunities that are emerging from this increased data capacity? We mentioned allergens. Anything else that you might want to touch on?
So with having this increased data capacity, you're able to basically unlock a bunch of different use cases, some of them being heavily with recalls. You can have a more precise recall because you know exactly which items were on that batch that need to be taken out of your supply chain or inventory, even the grocery store, rather than having to get rid of the entire truck or just the entire product that was made in a time frame, right? So having that batch lot data inside of a 2D barcode readily available allows you to attack that better. But on top of that, with your inventory management and having your expiration date inside of a 2D barcode, you can keep products from even leaving the store that have expired, right? Or if you really want to get rid of them, you can even discount them before they expire, so that you're kind of managing your inventory a lot better. So I mean, I can go on and on about the different use cases, but those are some of the like prominent ones that we're really seeing a lot of brands and manufacturers link onto.
Okay. And then before I pivot, my audience is packaging machine builders, OEMs. Before we pivot to that, how are manufacturers that you're interacting with preparing for this shift, Sunrise 2027? And is there a specific date that they need to transition to 2D barcodes by?
So I'll start by answering the second one. There is no sunset date for 1D barcodes, meaning you can still utilize 1D barcodes if that works with your business model. So manufacturers, there's not a deadline for you to have this on your packaging. The first question, what's happening with a lot of brands and manufacturers is they're kind of taking it slow if they have a large scale kind of business. And if you're a small to medium-sized enterprise, you're able to kind of have more control over how your products are getting barcoded and the packaging life cycle rather than those larger enterprises. So to back it up and make it more simplified, right? A lot of them are looking at all the resources that GS1 has, working with GS1 solution providers and all of that great stuff. And then they're starting to pilot. What they're doing is they're picking a number of products, some usually just one product, figuring out what use cases they're trying to unlock. Typically, they're just trying to get that G10 inside of the 2D barcode so it goes beep at checkout. But a lot of regulations, depending on the industry you're in, require you to have that extra data. So they're looking at putting that into the 2D barcode so they can meet regulations. And they're piloting that one product through the supply chain, making sure that it doesn't break anything. That way, once they decide to roll it out, it's kind of a seamless transition. The one thing I will say is that they are maintaining having both barcodes on package. So you'll have a 1D alongside a 2D barcode just for anybody within the supply chain who may not have updated their scanners to be able to consume the data on the 2D barcode.
That's very helpful to know. Yes, I'm glad
Yeah.
we addressed that. So then, in terms of the physical package itself, um, and the packaging process, how are you seeing machine builders adapting equipment to handle 2D barcode printing and reliable scanning?
So a lot of machine builders, which I think I kind of use this term, we call them solution providers because, you know, it could be somebody that's printing the barcode itself, somebody that's making the packaging, may it be sustainable, may it be flimsy or solid. What they're doing is they're increasing the print technologies to be able to apply those barcodes at the same speeds that they're doing on the manufacturing line while maintaining the quality. So you don't want to print these barcodes too fast to where they don't scan because that's still a thing today with 1D barcodes. And although 2D barcodes have this beautiful thing called error correction, right? It'll be able to still recreate the data that's on it, even if it's damaged. You don't want to you don't want to dilute the quality by going too fast. So what they're doing is they're updating their machines to be able to print these barcodes at quality onto the different types of packaging that whatever that may be. And then you have the scanners, right? The scanners that are already image based and 2D capable, they're making sure that they're able to be quickly updated just to start consuming that data. And for those that don't have 2D image based scanners, they're kind of changing out that equipment. So when they do scan the barcodes, they can still get the data and still work with it the same way that they're working within the supply chain.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of the data, if I'm a manufacturer, do I own that data? Who exactly gets all that barcode data?
So that's a loaded question, I would say, only
Okay.
because sometimes between partnerships with businesses, there may be a certain person that owns a portion of the data. And then for the brands and manufacturers, they are in control of a lot of the data. Specifically with 2D barcodes, if you're a brand owner and you're using the standard that's GS1 Digital Link, which is basically your domain name, your website with the product data inside of it, you are in control of all of that, right? Where it goes, who scans it, what they end up seeing when they scan it. Now, the data along the supply chain, when it's scanned and within those proprietary systems, let's say a retailer themselves is not openly sharing when they scan that 2D barcode, that's not something that would be easily accessible to the brand. They may have to work with the retailer to get that data. Let's say this 2D barcode was scanned at this time in the store for checkout. That's something that would have to be agreed upon for sharing
Mhm.
if it's not already open source or open data between them already. So it's kind of a mixed bag, I would say.
Yeah, I appreciate you answering that one. Um, any specific challenges in integrating dynamic or variable data into 2D barcodes on production lines?
Yeah, I would say the main challenge would be you can't really preprint these labels with your dynamic data. And your dynamic data is just data that is not going to be the same. So with your 1D barcodes, you have your G10 that's identifying the product, which is just your UPC barcode. That's always going to be the same on that same product. So you can preprint those labels, slap them on the product as they're being manufactured. But when it comes down to you needing to put the expiration date or the batch lot, you can't pre-print those dates because you haven't actually created the product. And then the accuracy of the expiration date would just be null and void at that point because you printed the date earlier than the actual product. So you wouldn't actually be able to tell when the product expired. So those are some of the challenges that a lot of brands are kind of working through. And there's many different ways to do that because you don't have to always have the data directly in the barcode. You can link to that additional information online. And that's just another magic wand of the 2D barcode at this point.
Magic wand, I love it. And the importance of smartphones too in all of this, really
Yeah,
essential.
very essential because, of course, the consumer engagement is truly what's going to be driving a lot of this. So you can utilize your smartphones within the supply chain. You know, it's going to become a scanner at some point in the future just because technology advances that fast. But when it comes down to post sale or even prior to making the sale, consumers are scanning these products to know what's in them. They want to know if it aligns with their lifestyle, their morals, however that goes for them. They want to scan these barcodes either before they purchase or even after to know what they're going to do with the product, how to even put the product together. Let's say it's a shelf or some type of cabinet, or even again, those allergens, how to recycle the product. So the consumer engagement is very important with this 2D barcode for a lot of brands because it gives them a different avenue to communicate with their customers.
Yeah, we didn't even go down that avenue about sustainable packaging or eco-friendly packaging and how 2D barcodes can help bridge that. That's an interesting angle too.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting new use cases and technologies that are being created just to help with that green initiative. It's actually a beautiful thing to see, I would say.
Yeah, beautiful thing to see. We talked about some of the bigger manufacturers. Let's talk smaller. How do they get started with 2D barcodes, and what does the investment look like?
So investment wise, for those smaller companies, I can't really say I can put a dollar amount on it, but when it comes down to them, they have more control over again, that printing process. So what they would do is they would pick their product. they probably already have a 2D barcode on them because they're smaller. They want to really get their name out there and connect those consumers without the GS1 standards aspect into it. So it's really just putting the barcodes in the proper standardized format and putting them next to each other. And again, that's just them looking at their packaging design and the packaging, I want to say, uh, what is it called? The time frame that they change the packaging. Because with the smaller manufacturers, they can change them more often, right? It's like, okay, I want to add this little thing to it, rather than with the larger ones, they have to wait maybe 6 months down the road. So with those smaller manufacturers, it's a lot easier for them to just put the 2D barcode on the package with the identification data in it, and then start to get that real-time data and feedback, as well as the product still going beep at checkout.
Thank you. And do you envision most manufacturers having the 1D and the 2D barcode to kind of kick everything off?
Yes. So
Mhm.
there is going to be a somewhat mandatory migrational period where you have to have them dual marked, which is basically having a 1D barcode in close proximity to the 2D barcode that's going to also have that G10. And the main purpose for this is that you don't get double scans. So you wouldn't want to go to a grocery store, self-checkout, and you scan one product, but it actually scans twice because the barcodes are too far apart,
Mhm.
because then you have to call somebody to basically remove that second scan, and that slows down your process of just getting out of the store.
Mhm.
So making sure those barcodes are close enough prevents the double scans to where business as usual can happen.
And then I have a few future facing questions, but before we move to that, anything else you may want to add about the Sunrise 2027 and 2D barcodes in terms of packaging machine builders?
Packaging and machine builders, we do have a discussion group. If you go to gs1us.org/smarter, I think that's the proper link running out of my mind. You'll be able to join that discussion group and kind of learn about the things that other manufacturers and machine builders have already done. So you don't have to make those same mistakes, or even just stand on their shoulders and get moving a little bit faster. That's the main
Definitely.
little thing I'll add.
We will have that link in this story, by the way. So if the link
Okay.
to the group,
If I messed it up.
we'll
Okay.
don't worry, we'll have the link. So beyond Sunrise 2027, are there any other innovations or technologies that are complementing 2D barcodes in packaging?
Yes. So there are many different ways that you can link to different data and additional information about the product. So we mentioned sustainability. There's this thing called Digital Product Passport, which is pretty much the post life cycle of a product and how you need to maintain and handle it. If I give an example, think about electronics. Let's say you're done with an electronic, you sell it. The way that it can get utilized again is because of this 2D barcode having that same identification data in it from when it was originally purchased. And then another use case of advanced technology that's being, I guess, mingled with 2D barcodes is RFID technology. So with 2D barcodes, you typically need to have a scanner that's image based to, line of sight to see the barcode. But with RFID, you don't need that. You have a tag on the product, you have a reader nearby, and once it's within that certain area of vicinity of that reader, it transmits the data that's identifying the thing. May that be a product, may that be a palette of products, and you can get multiple scans at once. So they kind of complement each other because your 2D barcode is going to be looking at your unit level. You can put those barcodes directly onto the individual product, whereas your RFID can be on that same label, but also on a palette to where you can scan every single product all at once. And so there's other technologies, but those are the two emerging ones that are, I think, the best to kind of like talk about because they're heavily being used and adopted today.
Thank you, Andrew. And you can always come back anytime you want. We could do barcodes and RFID. That's a whole
Yes.
other combo we could have. But I will be respectful of your time for today. So looking forward to 2030, 5 years, 6 years down the road, how might 2D barcodes and digital packaging reshape the way consumers, brands, and machine builders all interact?
So down the road, the idea is to no longer have that migrational period. You're going to have one barcode on your packages that can just do everything. It can help you have visibility throughout your entire supply chain from the time it was manufactured all the way to the time it gets to the retailer. You can have all of the scan data around that 2D barcode. So you get a full picture of each time that barcode was scanned, including post-purchase. So that one barcode is going to be doing so much, but it's also going to be opening up the world of online to your product packaging. It's basically the gateway that's starting it all. So it's the future that's already here today that people are trying to jump on the train for. So they can just be ready for that point in time.
All right. Well, we will stay tuned and Sunrise 2027 fast approaching. So, Andrew, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me on the downtime. I'll leave the floor to you if there's anything else you may want to add.
No, thank you for having me, Sarah. It was a pleasure to be here. And I can't wait to talk about RFID next time.
Yes, so we'll have you back for sure. I had a great time, and uh, we can always talk college football offline. So, thank you, Andrew.
Most definitely. Thank you.